So in trying to help figure out or help a client figure out whether they're being manipulated or gaslighted, I really look at indications that they're performing lots of behaviors that don't fit with their values, that don't sort of fit with the kind of version of their self they're comfortable being. And you can sort of see ambivalence around their behavior. And when you unpack, when you help them sort of explore that, when you point out, you're telling me about these things that you're doing or experiencing, but it doesn't sound like you're comfortable with that. And then they start sharing that they're doing those in response to feedback or demands or other things from people around them. At that point, for me, that's the clue that someone's being manipulated. If they're consistently engaging in stuff that doesn't fit with that they're not comfortable doing, they don't want to do, and yet they're doing it. And so I think that's a good sort of pointer. With gaslighting, which is sort of similar, I think it's when people present sort of ambivalence even around their own experience. They maybe talk about what they're feeling or talk about their reactions, but there's a real tentative quality to it. And when you sort of probe there, when you go, well, it sounds like you're sort of kind of feeling this way, but you're not quite sure. Well, then usually you get the kind of unpacking of, well, this is kind of what I feel, or this is what I hear from my partner. This is what I hear from my parents. This is what people say to me. And so sometimes they can actually identify the feedback they're getting from others that's triggering that feeling in them. One of the things that's important to think about is what's the client's behavior within those relationships. And so what we might have, if you've got someone in a behavior, in a relationship that's very punishing or very manipulative, is someone who has developed a protective strategy of going passive, right? Of maybe not standing up for themselves and sort of not allowing themselves to be manipulated necessarily. That's not their fault, but finding themselves doing things out of that passivity that they don't want to do. And so I think it's really easy if you've got a client who's sort of used to doing that to step into the role of therapist that's a little more dominant than you want to be, right? Where you're asking the client to do something or you're covertly pressuring them to do things. It's easy to fall into similar patterns that they might see in their relationship. And so for me, when I'm working with all clients really, but particularly with clients who have experienced manipulation, a big part of the story arc of the therapeutic relationship is to create a relational context with my clients in which they can feel an increasingly developed sense of agency, in which they feel increasingly comfortable being assertive with me, sharing their experience with me, actually increasing ability to engage in sort of mindful, like kind curiosity about their own experience and being able to communicate that in ways that I can then validate and reinforce. So they're discovering in the therapeutic relationship, maybe for the first time, a new way of being in a relationship in which they have agency, and which, they can utilize skills like and develop skills like assertiveness and things like that. So I think that's really important. I think you can do that really Socratically. I think we can do it, in the background. I think the therapist really has to recognize that our clients are the experts on their own experience, and that therapy isn't something that we do, to and with a client. At its best, it's a co-created process in which the client and the therapist are working together to build this experience that's going to be helpful and healing. And so that requires finding ways to give the client some agency.